Welcome back. So in this lecture, we are going to learn where to find our data and how to get a nice overview of what we're looking for, where we can find that data, and how to develop our strategy further from the data that we're getting. Now, first things first, the most obvious place where you're going to get your data and probably spend a lot of time, at least everyday time, is going to be within your Sitekit and then dashboard. In here, you're going to get the most basic information, but for everyday use, this is going to be more than enough. We're going to see how many visitors we're getting, how many visitors we're getting over the last 28 days with the total impressions, clicks, and unique visitors from search. Scrolling down, we're also going to see the top queries for our website. That means what are the search terms that people use to find your website. This is going to give us some great insights to our audience segments. If people are using the word hiking or camping or travel or fitness or gym, for example, to find our website, and there is a strong bias towards gym, well, we know we're probably going to develop that segment and create some more material towards those gym goers, because that appears to be very popular with this website. So this is from the Google Search Console. It's very valuable information. But when it comes to more in-depth information, we are going to be using Google Analytics. Now, I will be using a demo account for this because our account won't have enough data to properly show you how it looks like when you're getting big amounts of data coming in over time. So we're going to move over to the left, and the one section we're going to be spending all of our time are going to be in the reports. This is the data reports from all of the data coming in from our website. So this is why we installed Google Analytics. We don't need to bother about Explore and creating any funnels. We don't need to bother about advertising. All of these things are going to come later on in the course if you decide to apply that for your strategy. But that learning is later on in the course. So first things first, we have real-time overview and real-time pages. Now the real-time overview, like we've been using, is mainly used for testing to make sure things are actually working. And whenever you're doing any form of launch to, again, make sure that things are properly working. If you're sending out Black Friday emails and you know that they should have arrived within 6 hours and you're not seeing any data pop up at all in the real-time overview, something might actually be off, and that gives you some time to troubleshoot it. So this is mostly when you need the data instantly and you can troubleshoot to see if there are any issues. Then we have the life cycle. We have acquisition. That means how you acquired the traffic, how the traffic came to your website. Engagement is how they're engaging with your website. Are they scrolling? Are they clicking around? Are they purchasing? Are they signing up as a lead, etc.? And then monetization. Are they buying anything, and what are they buying, and for how much are they buying? And then we have the retention, meaning are people coming back? Do we have repeat visitors? And some insight in how to get those lifetime value customers or long-term value customers. So let's start off with acquisition, and we can use overview here. Here we're gonna get a nice overview of how people found your website. The most interesting metric is going to be new users by, and we can see where we're getting the new people coming in from. So we can see that a lot of people are going into the website directly. A lot of people are coming from organic search, paid search, referrals, email, etc. What is going to be extra interesting is when over time you start adding in multiple things like influencer marketing, like paid ads and those sort of things, and develop your strategy with it, because you'll get direct data in here to see, well, how is my organic search doing compared to my paid search? How is my email marketing doing? Etc. And of course, the same thing when you're using social media. Now, down below, we have user acquisition and traffic acquisition. The difference is that a user acquisition is a specific person. Now let's move down to engagement and start off with overview. While you're getting a nice overview of how people are using your website in the overview section, the most interesting part are going to be the pages and screen section. Now down here, we can see which parts of your website that is getting the most views, that is getting the most engagement. In other words, which pages and which posts on your website are the most attractive. This is the section we're going to keep an eye on, because it's going to show us multiple things. It's going to show us which products are generating the most profits for us. It's going to show us which articles are people spending the most time, the average engagement, that's the longest, actually reading. and what articles are people going through, and then moving on to purchasing, for example, one of our products. By understanding which of our articles that is gathering the most views and the most engagements, that way we can understand what we should be making more of. And the reverse is true as well. If I click on views here and I change the arrow so I can see the page with the least amount of views, I'll see the articles that are doing the most poorly. What we're looking for are patterns. If we can see, for example, that none of the hikers articles are producing, the audience we're getting from that segment isn't being valuable, the campaigns we've been running shows that they're not responding, well then that is not a good audience segment for us. But if we reverse it and see that we're getting a ton of views from gym goers, then we might want to create more articles and even change our design to be more towards gym goers. We'll also want to look at the average engagement time when we're looking for our articles and see which pages and which articles has the most engagement, because engagement translates to interest, and that interest is going to translate into sales over time. And then we have landing page. Now landing page means which is the first website that they will have landed on when they came to your website. For almost everyone is going to be the home page, and it looks like this. There's just a forward slash. That means that it's the home page. But we can also see that some land on /Canada, in this example, /shop/lifestyle/bags. If we're gonna see that a lot of people are landing on a specific article, that is going to speak to that segment specifically. Doesn't mean that it's the most engaged segment, but it means that it is the segment that is generating the most traffic, because that is the page that they are landing on firstly. So there is so much data we can go through and have a look at here. Then we can also see what is going to be the average engagement for that landing page. Do they land and just leave, or do they land and actually stay and read? What about the products? How many land on a specific product first? Which product is that? And is that leading to any form of sales? And then we have monetization. Let's go to overview. And this is going to be very straightforward. It's going to show which of your items that has the most purchases. We can see how much revenue we're generating, and we can always go to the upper right corner and change the date view to see how much are we generating in a day, how much are we generating in a month, in a year, etc. The most interesting by far is going to keep it on a month-to-month basis. And then we're going to want to do yearly reviews to make sure that we're making more and more money, or at least more and more profit year after year. And then finally, we have the retention. And here we have something called user retention by cohort. And that means that out of how many people that landed on day 1 returned on day 7. So that means how many people are actually coming back into our website. This is going to drastically improve when you manage to gather some leads and you master your email campaigns to bring them back into the website. When you start developing and have more products, more to sell, more interesting article, and build up that community. Then down below we have the search console. We can see the queries that people use to land on our website. We also see this in our site kit, but it's very important information. We can go down to users attributes. We're going to go into overview, and this is going to give us specific data about the users on our website. What is the age span of most people visiting our website? What is the country that is most popular with our website? This is very important data, because if we see that there's a lot of people from the US, we're probably going to want to change our language more towards the US. But if we see that there's a lot of people from India, we would change our design and our language towards Indian people rather. And this is only going to be true if we're selling globally, or say within Europe. If you're selling within one country only, this data is not going to mean quite as much. We can go down, we can get a deeper look at the demographic details. And this is where it gets really interesting, because down here we can see, most importantly, which country that is generating the most money. This is the data that we're really looking for. So if I click on total revenue here and I make sure that the countries with the most revenue ranks up most highly, that is going to be super important data, because we can see here that by far the US in this Google Merchant Shop is generating the most revenue out of all of them, and it has the most users, so that makes sense. But this is very interesting. Canada gets per month 2,626 new users, and look at India, 3,700. So just by looking at the number of active users coming in, or if you look at the number of new users coming in, you would think that India is a better choice than Canada. But if we go to the right, we can see that India isn't generating a lot of money for the store at all. whereas Canada is generating a ton of money, more than 10 times the amount that India is generating. So all of this data is going to be so important to keep an eye on in order to understand who our audience really is. And then finally, we go down and we have the tech, and we can get an overview of what tech people are using to browse our website. And we can see that 69% uses a desktop and mobile 29%. And that's pretty unusual stats. The latest research seems to suggest that for e-commerces, mobile hovers around 75%, but tablets usually are around 0.52, at tops 3%. So that is pretty spot on. But that is why we've optimized everything towards desktop and mobile. But then again, the data becomes important when you realize that, okay, most people coming to our website and purchasing come in on a desktop. So that's where we should be putting most of the design love in this case. But generally, it's going to be the mobile. So while we optimize for both, it's a good idea to know where the majority comes in from. And while of course Google Analytics is just one big black hole that you can dive in forever and ever and get more and more details, this is going to be the most important details in order to understand what's working in our strategy, what is not working, and then simply apply the principle of doing more of what works and less of what isn't working. And then looking at what sort of users are generating the most revenue and focusing mostly on those users. If it's the US, focus on the US and tailor the website and the design accordingly. Amazingly well done having built your strategy. But remember, this is just the beginning. Your strategy, whether it's yours or your client's, is going to be a project that is constantly a work in progress. It's going to constantly have to change and adapt, and there is so much more fun stuff to learn. In the upcoming section, you will get a chance to deep dive into the theory, and everything you learn there you can apply to your strategy to expand it for yourself or for a future client. You will learn how to take ChatGPT further by applying proper prompt engineering skills. You will learn how to do influencer marketing, which is an amazing method in order to generate high quality traffic, sometimes completely for free. And you'll learn more about branding and so much more in this course. When you have gone through the theory section, we will have the different channels where you can start adding in multiple channels such as Instagram, Facebook. You can add in ads, you can add in whatever you would like to expand yours or your client's strategy with. At the very least, I recommend that you go through the materials so that you're knowledgeable within it and then decide on how you want your strategy to adapt. But remember, in the end, when you test things, this is the place, this Google Analytics area is where you will see if the changes you're implementing is making your strategy better or worse. Only do more of what actually works and then do less of what isn't working. It's that simple. Amazingly well done. If you have any questions, we will be in the Q&A. But make sure now that you move on to the theory and start learning more and more and more and continue to develop your strategy. See you in the upcoming lectures.